that we can rely on in dealing with Muslims and say, well, if they're one, maybe they're not so bad. When Muhammad died, there was a controversy over who should succeed him. It was his son-in-law Ali was one option, and his friend Abu Bakr was another. The group which ended up being the Shiites favored Ali. The Sunnis, the group that became the Sunnis, favored Abu Bakr. And the Sunnis arranged under a flag of truce to murder Ali. And so Abu Bakr became the successor to Muhammad. And the current conflict between Sunnis and Muslims goes back to that event. The Sunni and Shia. The Shia still believe that Ali should be their rightful leader. The Iranians, for example, are Shiite. They would like to see Shia Islam spread over the world. The Saudi Arabians and Osama bin Laden, may he rest in peace, was a Sunni. And so that's the conflict. But it's a little bit like the difference between Catholics and Protestants in our world. It's not the kind of division that's going to make us say we should fight each other and not defend ourselves against the Muslims. And that's how they look at it. They may not agree completely, but they know we're the great Satan. I think I've gone on plenty long enough. I'd love to talk to you about the life of Muhammad. I'd like to go through the conquests. Go ahead.
Could you speak a little bit about or if you know about the no-go zones with, like, in France and England?
No-go zones, sure. When Muslims are in a small minority in a country, they preach tolerance. They talk about the religion of peace, and they just say, well, why can't we just all get along? And why are you persecuting us and saying bad things about us? When they get to a little bit larger percentage, they start rioting and making demands. When they get to a higher number, they start picking the zones where they have the greatest population and demanding Sharia law. And if they don't get Sharia law, they make that zone so inhospitable that non-Muslims won't go in there. And there are zones all through Europe now where non-Muslims just don't go, where the police don't go. They're like a ghetto area, like there was a time when Watts in California before the riots years ago, when the police didn't go there. I'm sure there's places in many major cities where that's true. And they've also implemented Sharia law in some of those places. In Denmark, for example, Muslim rape of Danish women is pretty common, and there's no consequence for it. They're just living according to their culture. And we don't want to start a controversy and offend the Muslims, so the cases just aren't prosecuted. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what we're headed for if we allow Muslims to immigrate into our country. How many Muslims came out against Osama bin Laden when he was killed? How many people did you see Muslims dancing in the street in jubilation because he was killed? No, but you did see quite a few of them out there threatening death to the USA because we did it. But wait a minute, I thought Osama bin Laden wasn't a real Muslim. He hijacked Islam. So if that's true, if he just hijacked Islam, why are Muslims all around the world so upset that we killed him? So any other questions?
I didn't catch your name, number one. Number two, what is your background, very briefly? And number three, what are your interests?
I can't give you my name because then they'd kill me. I'm in violation of Sharia. Jim Wagner. I've got such a varied background that it would be a biography to try to do it all. But I write a bit, and I made a point of studying Islam when a friend back in early 2005 asked me if I thought a Muslim could be a good American citizen, which is why I introduced with that topic. And I've been studying it ever since. If anybody would like a bibliography of what I base this on, it's roughly 20 volumes that I rely on for this. Several videos, including a couple almost feature-length videos that cover some of it, and scores of articles. I've been studying Islam. Yeah.
You sort of touched on it briefly, the backwardness of the Muslim culture overall over the centuries.
Yeah.
And if you, do you know very much as like their technical accomplishments or
I do.
whatever compared to like the Jewish nation?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, this is a myth that is part of the stealth jihad. It's the notion that Islam was a great culture, a great civilization, standing on its own. You have to remember that what Islam had was what the Soviet Union had, a powerful military with a hollow civilization behind it. And so the Islamic military, for example, conquered Persia, which was probably the most advanced civilization. They conquered the Eastern Roman Empire. They got all of the Greek civilization from that. They got all of the Catholic civilization that had been built from that. They conquered India. They got mathematics from India. You always hear this stuff about how they were great, their culture was great. They had this in medicine, they had that in medicine. So
They invented alcohol.
people, we should know the names. We should know the names of the people who did this. I can tell you the two names that they give over and over again, Averroes and Avicenna. I've forgotten which was which. One was a Persian who made advances in medicine, and the other was a Spaniard, in other words, under the caliphate that ruled Spain, who analyzed Thomas Aquinas, and why in modern world, why an analysis of Thomas Aquinas would make somebody famous, I really don't know, but that's how desperate Islam is to come up with anybody Islamic who created culture. Think what it would mean to a primitive people. Think what it would mean to Muslims today if they could conquer the United States and Europe. Think what a quantum leap that would be in their civilization. And as long as they could continue to get us to work as dhimmis and produce for them, they could maintain that civilization. You don't have to know how to do quantum mechanics like Edmund was talking about earlier. You don't have to know how to do that at all if you can point a gun at him and say, do it. And that's how they maintained their civilization. And how they continued to go to war was by plundering and by enslaving people and forcing them to produce. What happened when Western Europe reached ascendancy is that it stopped the Muslims from being able to do these things. It stopped them from being able to gather slaves. It stopped them from being able to impose dhimmitude. And once that happened, their wealth to continue controlling and consuming other civilizations disappeared. Now they're getting that back a little bit, and that's why we should be concerned. Did I cover what you were talking about?
Yeah, you sort of did, but there was a list of their accomplishments which you covered, which is really not that much of anything. And then if you take the list of accomplishments of Westerners or from the Jewish nation, you get hundreds of accomplishments,
Oh.
literally hundreds.
Oh, you mean
Hundreds,
like Nobel
earth-shaking.
Prize winners?
Oh, beyond that.
Have you all seen the list of Jewish
Yeah.
Nobel Prize winners?
Yeah.
Israel, this little tiny country, Islam, this huge expanse of the world,
Yeah.
Nobel Prize winners in every field.
Yeah.
Don't look for Muslims on that name, on that list. I think there are two.
Yeah.
What else?
I just, when you mentioned charity and almsgiving,
Uh-huh.
we can't take that in the Christian idea of charity and almsgiving, because it's only within other other Muslims.
Yeah, could you
It would
expand
ju-
on
Oh,
that?
yeah. The charity and almsgiving within Islam is genuine. If you look at Hamas, for example, Hamas is practicing that in the Palestinian state. They donate a large amount of the money they get from various international organizations. Am I running over here, Evan?
That's okay.
And they donate a large amount of that to schools, to hospitals, to those kinds of things. It's not to say that Muslims don't treat each other good, but mainly they donate it to terrorism. And you have to remember that jihad is more important. It's the sixth pillar of Islam. It's more important than charity. You can't go to heaven by being charitable, but you can by killing Christians. So I know I've gone over my time because this guy back here is going like this, and Edmund's going like this, and everybody else is yawning. So
That's okay, Jim. We want you to go over time.